So it's very good to come and speak to you again on this really important topic, caring for our mental health, because this is so important for us. And we live in a world where there are many things that can disrupt our mental well-being, and that's normal. There were people in the Bible, great people, who struggled with their emotions at times. People like Elijah and Jonah and David all had their emotional ups and downs, and it's something that's normal, and we need to take care of ourselves in the best possible way to help ourselves reduce our anxiety and depression, etc., when we can, but also to understand it is now a normal part of life. And just as if we hurt our bodies, we go to the doctor for some medicine, then also when our mind is hurting, medicine can be really helpful. I see it as like a plaster cast holding the brain steady while healing takes place when emotions have been disrupted, and it can be really useful. And just as Christians get colds and flu, they can get depression and other mental illnesses that affect them. And often it's to do with the chemicals in our body and other things, our hormones, other things that are happening to us. And it's good to take care of ourselves the best we can, but know there is good care for us if we're struggling with something, and to support those who are looking for help when they are struggling, and not to criticize them or judge them. So we are holistic beings, as we know. Our spiritual health will also affect our emotional, mental health, and our relational health, and our physical health. They're all interlinked with one another, and it's important to understand this. But we can be spiritually healthy and still struggle with things in our mental health. So mental illness can happen to anyone because, as I mentioned, it has many complex causes. It's not a sign of spiritual weakness. It's a normal part of living in our world. And all these different things, genetics and other factors, chemistry, affect our body and our mind. And it's important to get help as soon as possible. If you think there is something happening in your mind that you don't understand, or that is bringing you down, making you super sad and making it difficult to live, it's important to go and seek medical help as soon as possible, because the sooner you do, then the easier it is to mend it usually, and you can perhaps take less medication if you go quickly and help to rebalance as soon as you can. So there was a time in my life when I experienced some depression. Something had gone wrong in the life around us, and we were trying to manage a very difficult situation that was very complex. And I felt really struggling for a while, some anxiety, some depression. And just for about 3 months, I took some medication to try and help me to stay steady at that time. And it was really helpful. It's not every medication suits everyone. And it's okay to tell a doctor if something is bothering you when you take some tablets, and there's often other things that you can try. So I did have a time when I took some medication for a while, and I'm glad that I did. It was very helpful. But each of us needs to make our own choices when it comes to caring for our mental health, and not to judge other people and their choices, because we just don't know what each person is dealing with in their bodies, in their minds, in their lives. And we need to support them towards healing in different ways. So Jesus wants to help us. He says, the thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. And I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And this is what Jesus wants to give us. But he knows we live in a real and broken world. I found that actually our picture of God has a huge influence on our mental health. If we see God as angry, unforgiving parent, we can become more fearful and anxious, and maybe even angry and unforgiving towards others. So if you see God as a distant, disconnected parent, it can lead to sadness and aloneness in people's lives. If you see God as a law enforcing policeman, that can lead to guilt, fear, and judging others, because the way we see God is often the way that we relate to others too, and project him to others. A teacher who demands perfection, or a parent who demands perfection, can lead to perfectionism and not feeling good enough, and also judging others who don't seem to be perfect. But God is actually the most loving parent you could ever imagine. And when we feel very loved by God, then it really helps us. When we know how much grace He gives us, how much He forgives us, how He wipes away our tears and wipes away our sins, when we really understand who God is, it can be very soothing, and it can help us to be less anxious and less depressed in our life. So our picture of God can contribute to the way we feel about our mental health and what we experience. And by beholding, we do become changed. But even with all of that, we can still struggle at times, because many mental illnesses are based on your body chemistry and genes and other experiences. And we need to work with those as we would work with any other illness. So, love letter from God. I don't know if you have encountered this. It's a love letter from God to you, and it's been written in more than 50 languages. And it's definitely in every European language. And you can go to the website, fathersloveletter.com, and listen or read the love letter from God to you, which is made up of many Bible verses. And as you listen to it, choose one phrase in that letter that's particularly meaningful for you today, so you can experience His love for you. Because the more we experience God's love, it actually releases hormones into our body, oxytocin, which we get from experiencing God's love and the love of other human beings, which can be really healing and soothing and lower anxiety and increase happiness. And so that can be really useful to do, to just pause and experience God's love for you, whatever you're going through. He loves you so much. And if I were here with you in person, then we would tell each other one of the phrases that we have chosen from the love letter from God that we find really encouraging today. But you can look at that later and think about that. So who are we to God? What's God's relationship to us and our relationship to God? We are each His beloved child. No matter who we are or what we've done or what we've not done, we remain God's beloved children. We are all equally loved, whatever happens to us, whatever we've done. We're all the same in His eyes. He knows everything about us, and He loves us anyway. And He remembers that we are fragile, and He takes care of us gently and patiently. He's always ready to forgive us. He is aware of all of our tears, the Bible tells us, and He is our greatest comforter. And He comforts us so that when we learn what comfort is, we can then comfort others. And He wants us to bring all of our troubles to Him. Cast all your cares upon Him, says Peter, because He cares for you. Whatever we're troubled with, we can talk to Him about it. And He cares for us. And He walks alongside us in the valley of the shadow of death when things seem really dark and gloomy and overwhelming. He is with us. He never leaves us. He will never leave us or forsake us. And He's longing to take us home to be with Him forever. He misses us because He loves us so much. We are more precious to Him than anything else, and He is always with us. What else would you add? I mean, these are just some verses I pulled together to describe how much God cares for us and how gentle He is with us. You know, Elijah, after the experience with the fire on the mountain, he ran and he was overwhelmed, and he hid. And I think he was then quite depressed. People looking back at the story think he was quite depressed, and God just let him rest and sent food to him, and sleep, to eat, until he got stronger to again. So God was taking care of him in that time when he was feeling very sad, very alone, very confused. God was there gently taking care of him. So something that I found helpful was to pray that my picture and of experience of God will be continually expanded, and look for every day how much He loves me. And I found this is really helpful, because how we look at the world changes how we experience it a bit. So if you look at the world and see everything that is gloomy and difficult and all the bad things in the world, then it's going to make you feel worse. But if you look at the world and say, I wonder how God is showing His love to me today, then that's very special, and look for it. Try not to miss it. He's loving you 1,000 ways every day. Every breath you take, everything you eat, your home, everything in your home, his protection over you, is all his love pouring out on you. So experience it and thank him for it, because the more that we are settled and safe in God's love, the easier it is to manage the distresses of life that come to us and to find healing in him. When we feel loved by God, it has a really positive effect on our spiritual, emotional, relational, and physical health. And it's useful for us to stop sometimes and think, what is going on inside me? What are my feelings? Because we can have lots of feelings all at once. And sometimes they can be overwhelming, or sometimes we're ignoring feelings that we need to pay attention to. So you can draw a circle and make a pie chart of your emotions. What are you feeling right now? So there might be a bit of you that's a little bit anxious because you have an exam coming up. There's some joy because something happy has happened. There's maybe some sadness because someone has just died or they're really sick. And so we can have lots of emotions at once. And by making a pie of them, we can see, what am I feeling right now? And what can I do about the different feelings, rather than just feel everything in one big stew. And so that can be a really helpful way to think about what you're feeling, and also with your children, ask them what they are feeling right now, and help to understand what's going on inside of them, that they can't always find the words for. So how many emotions in your pie are uplifting and like joy and peace and having a sense of purpose, the good things, the gratitude, that can lift you up. And then other things like fear and sadness, guilt, frustration, stress can pull you down and drain you. And we need to manage those emotions. If you want to find out how different things you can do to balance your emotions, I've written a project called Flourish, which is available on the GC Women's Ministries website and also on the Trans-European Division website under Family. So if you Google for TED, Family and Flourish, or GC Women's Ministry and Flourish, you will find loads of ideas there which you can do to help you experience uplifting emotions that can counteract the draining ones that we experience in this world of stress. Sadness is something that we will experience in our life. It's a sense of loss, aloneness, or disappointment. It can happen when we lose someone we love, lose a job, move house, and something is lost, or we feel alone, or we feel disappointed. And sadness needs comforting by God and by others. And there's some things that we can read to remind us just how much God cares when we're sad, and how we can care for one another, because he sees our tears, he encourages us to comfort one another, and one day he wants to wipe away all our tears. So think about God as comforter. And David said, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." And he will wipe every tear from their eyes. And I don't know whether he has a real bottle of my tears or a metaphorical bottle, probably, but it lets me know that he sees every tear and he cares. Nothing ever goes unnoticed, and he remembers. And Paul says this: "Praise be to God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, the God of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles, so we can comfort others in their trouble with the comfort we have received from God." And as a therapist, I think that until we have felt God's comfort for us, it's much harder to show comfort to others. So, and Paul tells us he comforts us so that we know how to comfort others well. And sometimes we just need to come to God. Imagine we're sitting in his lap and he's giving us a big hug, and he's speaking words of comfort to us in the middle of our sadness. And I do that when I feel really sad or overwhelmed. I just imagine I'm sitting in God's lap and he's giving me a big hug. And then I imagine, what would he say to me right now? And it's always something comforting that comes into my mind. Jesus said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted," because unless we are sad and show we are sad, people will not know and will not know to comfort us. So Jesus is telling us, be sad and let people comfort you, because there you will find healing and the comfort of God. So we mourn with those who mourn. When someone's sad, we are sad with them. And sometimes I have just sat with people who are sad and just really cried with them, because there wasn't anything else I could do or say in such a sad situation. But even just crying with them was something so healing for them and quite spiritual for me as well. It touched me to cry with them, and it felt incredibly special to be able to do that. So when someone is sad, we can listen to each other with comfort. I am sad that you're sad. Your sadness touches my heart because I care about you. And talk to God about your sadness. Tell him. He knows already. He's fine. He's not troubled by your sadness. He cares, and he wants to help you to be comforted. He walks with us through the sadness, through the valley of the shadow of death, and he cares for us and loves us. So, as I said, I imagine God's hug, and so can you when you're in those times of sadness or anxiety. And for me, I found it really reassuring to remember he is with me all the time, and he would give me a physical hug if that were possible. So I just hug myself and remember how much he loves me. Something that is quite useful to do that is positive is to list 100 things that bring you joy. Or if you know someone who is sad, help them to think of 100 things that bring them joy. Write them on different cards. And often we notice that it's very small things that bring us joy. But when we feel sad, we don't do them so much. So it's important to remember what does make you happy. Maybe there's a walk you go on that makes you feel happy. Maybe you have a handful of Bible verses that bring you joy. Maybe there are memories that bring you joy, or flowers, or different foods you enjoy. So write every single one down on a card, and then choose a card at least once a day and do what it says on the card to experience joy. Because as I said, people who are sad stop choosing things that bring them joy, and that can make it harder to find joy again. And imagine that these things are like a little boost of happiness into the sadness to help rebalance it. So those things can be helpful. And if you know someone who is sad and they don't have the energy to do these things, find out what brings them joy and help them to experience it. It might be a piece of music. It might be all kinds of things, doing something for a hobby or helping someone else. And if you do it together, it can encourage them and help you to bring them joy again. When I work with families that are very sad, we make a comfort menu and we list all the different things that they like that might comfort them, because it's not always hugs and a tissue and tears. Sometimes it can be someone doing something fun with you to distract you, playing a game, going for a walk, bringing you some flowers, listening to you talk about your feelings, listening to talking about the person you have lost. So make a menu, a list of all the things that can comfort you and the people in your family when you're going through a sad time, so that you know the ways to comfort one another. So a helpful response is when people are sad, listen well, because everyone's sadness is different to yours. And we all experience sadness and loss differently. It's very complex. So listen to what they have to say so you can understand them and help them in the best possible way. Don't judge their questions and their responses if they're struggling. Does God love me? What's happening here? Why doesn't God do something? Or if they say or do something that they wouldn't normally do. Sometimes when people are very distressed, they're just looking for anything that will calm them and soothe them for a bit. And it might not always be the best thing, but it doesn't help if we judge them. They sometimes, especially when people have been traumatized, they may say and do things just because they don't have the words to express how terrible it feels. And don't judge what they say. Don't tell anyone else. Just let it go, because that's what God does. He just blows it away and loves them anyway, because he knows what's in their heart and he knows how much suffering they are experiencing. So comfort the person, just sit with them, be sad with them, tell them, I'm sad because you're sad. Your sadness touches my heart. I'm staying here with you to let you know I care and to help you remember that God cares too. So help them to experience God's love and comfort. And sometimes I will say, I know you're feeling really sad right now, and God is with us. And I think if he spoke right now, he might say, and I say something really comforting. And that I know God would say to them something very similar. So fear is a concern about something that may or may not happen, which might be difficult for us to manage. So we have anxiety. Fear is felt in our bodies. It doesn't respond to someone telling you you don't need to be afraid of that, because it's not felt. It's not an intellectual response. Your body feels the fear, and talking to your rational brain doesn't really help very much. So we need to understand that just by telling people not to be afraid it's not actually very helpful. So fear is a physical response to often a frightened and traumatized memories that make us fight back and protect ourselves or run away or just freeze, or another kind of response. God says, do not fear. I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you. And perfect love casts out fear. So if we're making someone feel afraid, or we're afraid of someone, we need to stop and think, because perfect love does not cause fear. It takes it away. And this is the kind of love that God has for us. He creates a relationship where we don't have to fear him. He is looking for us, looking out for us. He is loving us and caring us, so that we don't have to fear God. And we know that he is on our side and he is with us. So when we experience fear, and I experience fears towards some rather strange things because of traumas that happened to me in my childhood, and I recognize that. And the first thing I do is pray about the fear, and I understand where the fear started. And sometimes these fears started when we were very small children, and maybe a dog frightened you or bit you, and you may not remember the story, but your body does. And your body, when it sees a dog, even a tiny dog, might get quite frightened because it doesn't know what the dog is going to do. So when you feel afraid, be compassionate towards yourself. Care for yourself. Don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty. Just say, I'm feeling afraid, and that's normal. I'm a human being. There are scary things in this world, and I'm afraid, but I know God is with me. So make small steps to face the fear if you feel able to. Sometimes when we feel afraid, someone will try and push us to do something and say, oh, you should just do this and make yourself do it, or even push you into it. And sometimes that can make it harder for the person who is afraid. It can be too overwhelming to experience that. So help them to decide the best way to face their fears, if they feel able to. And think about, what effect has the fear had on your life? Are there times when you were less scared in those situations, and what helped you be less scared? And when I feel afraid, I'm always less scared when my husband is there holding my hand and helping me. And I have some fears because my vision is disturbed, and I'm not always sure if I'm safe where I'm walking, or on escalators and stairs. And so I have a fear because I can fall a lot because I can't see properly. And so the fear actually helps to protect me. But I feel better when my husband is there to hold my hand, and I've got a railing to hold on to, so that I don't have to feel so scared. Or I can go in the lift instead of the escalator. And I found that when I take deep breaths, as if I'm blowing bubbles for children, like here on the picture. If you take a deep breath and blow out like you're blowing bubbles, a long, slow breath out 3 times, you'll often find this will calm you down. And sometimes when I have to speak to people in a big event, I can feel a little bit scared, or sometimes a big bit scared. And I start by taking some really deep breaths to calm me down. It's a very natural way for your body to calm itself when it's feeling anxious or frightened. So just know you can use this resource that your body has to help calm you down. And David says, be still and know that I am God. And that's what I tell myself when I'm in a moment of anxiety or stress. I just do these big blow breathings and say, be still and know that I am God. And it reminds me that God is in control and I can be still and he's taking care of a countless amount of things, including me. And that makes me feel really safe to know that I can be still because God is God and he is in control and he's supporting me. When we worry about things in the future, it can really spoil our peace and joy here and now. And Jesus says, don't worry about the future. It says today's got enough worries of its own. He says then, look at the sparrows, look at the little birds, because when you look at the birds and see how God takes care of them, feeds them, looks after them, then it's a reminder to you that God takes much more care of you. So Jesus actually tells us to look at creation, to look at birds and flowers, because there we notice God's love. And now we know that when we do that, when we really look closely at nature and at all the little feathers on that tiny bird, and we look at the little bird flying and singing and hear the singing, we're filled with wonder that this tiny creature can sing so well and fly so beautifully and looks so perfect with its feathers. And whenever we experience wonder, we are less anxious. We feel calmer. We have a picture of God who is way beyond us that calms us down too. And wonder helps us to feel kinder to one another and more humble too. It's an interesting experience. Our brains can't experience gratitude and anxiety at the same time. So when we're feeling anxious, it can be really useful to focus on things to thank God for. One thing I will do, and I did with my children, was to go through the alphabet and look around the room, go through the alphabet and name one thing for every letter that I was thankful for, or that we were thankful for as a family. Or I look around the room and I thank God for the things in my room and for the different pieces of furniture and the different things I have, because they're all gifts from God that maybe I haven't thanked him for before. And if I see something I'm not thankful for, I think maybe I need to give that away if I'm not grateful for it. Let someone else enjoy it. Or I'll walk along the road and I will thank God for one thing after another along my pathway. Thank God that there are lamps in my street so I can see at night, that there are people in their homes, and thank God for them. Thank God for the people who are around me on the road, or the sky that is so beautiful. So I just keep looking and filling my mind with one thing after another to be thankful for. And I find that can really make you feel joyful and help the anxiety to calm down a bit. Sometimes we have a generalized anxiety, which is when we feel anxious about many things all at the same time. And that can be quite overwhelming. So it can be helpful to write each worry that you have on a different piece of paper and think, how worried am I about this on a scale of 0 to 10? What am I most worried about in this situation? And is there anything I can do to lower my worries? So when we separate them all out and look at them, we could think, well, I could do that. That might help that worry to go down a bit. If I have an exam, if I prepare well, if I take some time to study, practice some questions, ask for help if I don't understand, those things can help me manage my concerns about my study. If I'm worried about money, what can I do about the money? Is there something I can do to manage my money or whatever it is that I'm worried about? So when we write each worry on a different piece of paper, we can separate them out, take them out of our head and write them down. Just doing that can be a big help, because when they're just in our head, they buzz around like bees and it's hard to concentrate. But if we write them on paper and put them down, our brain can let go of them. This is why writing a list or writing things in a notebook can be helpful, because you can let go of them in your head. You know they're safe on the paper, and even that can be calming. And you can give the paper to God and say, "Dear God, I don't know what to do about any of this, but I know you do. Help me to give my worries to you," as Peter tells us, and because you can take care of them, and give me the wisdom to know what to do. What effect are worries having on your life? Is there a time when you worry less? Because often we worry less when we're doing something fun, or we're doing our hobby and we're totally focused on our hobby, or maybe when we're at work and we're enjoying our work. When we're doing something that gives us a sense of purpose and fills us with joy and takes all our concentration, it seems then we can let our worries go. And some of the research shows that people who have a hobby, a craft skill, particularly something that's repetitive, or something that takes all their attention, or even doing a puzzle, can help people to worry less, to let go of their worries for a while, give their brain a rest, and find some peace. So you can make a little calm down kit if anxiety is something that troubles you or troubles someone else. Write a short prayer asking the Holy Spirit to comfort and soothe you and bring you peace. It doesn't have to be long. God understands all your needs before you say them, but it can be helpful to write a prayer and say it when you're feeling distressed and you don't know what to say. But even if you have no words to pray, God understands them, and he listens to the muddle in our hearts and makes sense of it. I saw a picture the other day, and it was of all kinds of letters, like from the Scrabble game, on a table, all mixed up. And it says, "Dear God," and then there was all these muddled letters. And that was the prayer. And the answer from God was, "Dear child, I know, I love you." Because he can make sense of the chaos in our mind and in our hearts. And he loves us anyway. He understands, and he's working things out. So make a collection of reassuring Bible verses that help you to feel calm again and remind you of God's loving care and presence with you. And sometimes you might need to remind yourself that God is with you, because he's with us all the time. We don't have to pray for him to be with us, because he is always with us. And we have to focus on being with him. When I was a little girl, I had a really anxious time at school. A teacher had been really abusive to me, and I didn't want to go to school. And my mum made me a little dress, and in the pocket, she sewed a heart-shaped button. And whenever I was feeling anxious or sad, she said, "Put your hand in your pocket and you can feel this little heart, and it will remind you that I love you and God loves you." And so I would put my hand in my pocket several times a day to remind me that God was taking care of me. And that was very special. You can draw around your hand and cut it out and write your concerns on the palm of the paper hand. And then imagine you are giving this paper hand to God as your prayer. "Please take care of my concerns. I know you are. I don't know what to do with them, but I know that you are managing them, and you will make things beautiful in your time." And I have found in my life, maybe because now I am quite old, in my 60s, I can look back at my life and see how the things that made me really anxious, God worked into amazing things in the end and made beautiful things out of the difficult situations in my life and the big tragedies. And that really helps me now, because when something happens now, I know that God is doing something behind the scenes, and it may take a while. I may not see it in my lifetime, but I know that God is working through the situation, making it beautiful, and that is so reassuring. So in the calm down kit, if I have a friend who's going through a worrying time, I will make this little kit and write out a prayer and give them some reminders of God's peace, put some bubbles in there. Also, going for a walk in a forest or a park with trees and nature, that is also really calming for us. God designed the world to help us to feel calm. So go for a walk in nature with a friend and just smell the air and touch the trees and move about in the woods. Look for something beautiful that fills you with wonder. And God uses those nature places to bring us peace. And as Jesus said, look at the birds and the flowers, and plan an hour a day where you have nothing to do but rest. If you're feeling anxious or sad or overwhelmed, set aside an hour where you can just rest and you don't have to feel bad that you're not doing anything. This is a way for your body to heal and your mind to heal, and just do something that brings you joy. We can feel better by baking or making something creative, helping someone in need, and actually helping others is a really good antidote to depression. One psychiatrist told me that helping for many kinds of depression, not all, for many, helping someone else and being kind to them is much more effective than counseling or even medication for mild depression, because it releases natural hormones into the body that help to make it feel happier again. Have fun, have a good laugh. So when we laugh and enjoy being with other people and have some fun, or watch a funny movie, or even watch funny clips of animals doing funny things, then the laughter can help us to calm down. It's an antidote. All of that positive emotions like laughter, joy, peace, love, hope, all of these different positive emotions, they are the emotions of heaven. They are the emotions we were created to experience. And when we choose to engage in them and feel those things and do things that help us feel that way, we're helping ourselves heal from the difficult emotions we have from living in a broken world. So choosing the uplifting emotions, the inspiring ones, really is an important part of taking care of our well-being. Another useful task is sifting thoughts. So in Philippians 4:8, Paul tells us to think about positive things. And in 2 Corinthians, to sift our thoughts and take thoughts captive, because some thoughts are running wild in our minds and they're not very helpful and they can make us feel worse. So when I do this with people, they write every troublesome thought on a separate piece of paper. And then they have a look at them. Are there any themes? Are there fears? Are there worries? And look at what those might be. And then think, are these thoughts true or lovely? Because sometimes these are not true and lovely. Sometimes someone has told us, oh, you're not good enough, or you can't do this, or no one will ever like you, or you are this, and say horrible things to us. And those thoughts often go around in our head. They're given to us sometimes sometimes sadly by our parents or by teachers or by bullies or unkind people, and they can bother us. So looking at these thoughts and thinking, is that thought true? Does it really belong to me? Is this what Jesus would say to me? Can help you decide whether that is a useful thought or not. Some of them might be helpful, but a lot of the time they are hurting us in different ways, and they're not necessarily true. And Paul tells us to think about the things that are lovely, pure, and of good report. And then when we've taken all our thoughts captive, all the ones that trouble us and bother us, what do we want to do with them? Sometimes when I'm working with people, they say, I want to take these and burn them somewhere or bury them or just float them in a river and let go of them. And then we write down the positive thoughts that they have, encouraging messages people have given to them, blessings, verses from the Bible, the good thoughts, the true, pure, lovely thoughts that Paul talks about in Philippians. Gather them and put them in a little box and keep them safe, like a treasure box. And every time that one of the annoying thoughts comes into your head, imagine you're pulling it out and you're putting it in the bin, not the recycling bin. You don't want to see them again. And then replace that thought that wasn't helpful or that is saying hurtful things about you or unhelpful things. Replace it with a positive and true thought from God. I love you. I am with you always. You are precious. I can't wait for you to be in heaven with me. One day I'll wipe away all your tears. These things that God wants to say to us in those moments. And those are the thoughts that can build us up and help us to challenge the negative thoughts that sometimes the world gives us. So when our friends come and talk to us and they've been going through a difficult time, listen without judging them. Just listen to their feelings. Emotions are not good or bad. They just are. They're chemicals in our body that give us different emotions and feelings and thoughts. Give them good eye contact. Pay attention to them so they know that you're really listening, because just listening well can be so helpful and healing to them. Be really confidential unless you think that they're not safe and they might hurt themselves or others. Keep what they say to yourself. Don't share it with anybody else. And if they do share something that means they're not safe or someone else is not safe, talk to them about, we need to talk to someone about this, because this isn't safe and we have to go to people who can help us. So this is really important for listening. So be curious and not critical. Ask questions to show that you want to find out more, but don't be critical. Don't criticize them, because everyone has had a very complicated life and they do things for different reasons. For their family did it, or their culture, or they learned this in their life somehow. So be curious and find out about what they're thinking about and what they're feeling. Say, how long have you felt like this? When did it start? Because when we find out when a feeling started, we maybe can make more sense of it and help us to understand what to do about it. So what was happening then when that feeling started? And so that can help you. So maybe, so I could trace one of my fears back to an experience I had as a child. And it was helpful for me to remember, oh, that's when this fear started. Because I was only little and I couldn't manage the situation, but now I'm bigger. Now I can manage it. And I can think of different ways to manage my fears because I'm bigger now. What effect is this experience having on your life? And what does it prevent you from doing, this feeling or this fear or this anxiety? What have you already done to try and manage the problem? And what did you try? Was it helpful? What was helpful? What wasn't helpful? And what are your hopes? What do you hope will happen? Your long-term hope for this experience, and what's your short-term hope? What can I help you with in this moment right here now? So ask what you could do to be helpful. Pray for them and with them. People who are distressed, they just need really short prayers, because long ones can tire their mind and aren't so helpful. They just need a really quick short prayer. Quite often I will write it out, not just say I'm going to pray for you, but I will write it on a message and send it to them so they can read it again and again. And I'm not just saying I'm going to pray, they can actually read the prayer that I've written for them. And that can be nice and helpful. Be kind to them, because when we're kind, or we help them to be kind too, then oxytocin is released in their brain, which comforts them and calms them down and helps them to settle. Offer to go with them to the doctor if you think that's going to be really important, so they don't have to go on their own. And doctors are used to hearing people come who are feeling sad and anxious or having other troubling mental health issues. And they know what to do. They know how to care and how to help usually. So check in with the person who is struggling. Let them know you're thinking of them, praying for them and caring for them. Help them to experience some things that bring them hope and joy, because they will help to lift them up in the middle of the difficult situation. And be there for them, because healing from sadness or anxiety is not a straight line. It can go up and down and back and forth, and it's good for us to be patient with them on their unpredictable journey. Paul says the first quality of love is patience, which is really interesting. And you see actually in the Bible how patient he is with people who make mistakes, even Abraham. I remember in Sabbath school being told that Abraham was this great patriarch and this great man. And as an adult, you read the story and you think, oh, no one ever told me those bits. And you see how God is really patient with him over many, many decades. He grows him. He's patient with his mistakes. He keeps working with him. And that's how he is for all the rest of us as well. So anger is a secondary emotion. We feel another emotion first, which causes us to express anger. So it's important to think, what was the first emotion that I felt? Am I angry because I feel sad or afraid or disappointed? And then think about, how do we deal with that first emotion? What do you do when you're angry? How do you show it? What effect does it have on others? And what helps you to calm down when you feel angry? And how can you maybe express yourself in a different way than getting angry, by saying what it is that you need? And this can be helpful. In this situation, when this thing happens, I feel this way because, And it would really help me if you could do this instead. And then I can help you and try and think of something that you could do for them. What ideas do you have for helping us to solve the problem? And being able to express ourselves when we feel frustrated or angry with someone in this calm way helps you to express yourself calmly, and it helps the other person to understand you better and to know what they can do to help you. So this is a really useful format for expressing your anxiety, even your fear or your anger, and say, in this specific situation, when this thing happens, I feel frightened because, and it would really help me if you could do this. So when someone drives a car fast, I feel really frightened because I was once in a car accident, and it would really help me if you could drive slower when I'm in the car, and then I can help you by being a less anxious passenger, and we can have a more enjoyable ride. What ideas do you have for helping us to solve the problem? So the fruit of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And God treats me lovingly in all these ways. This is how God loves us. Can I treat myself in these loving ways too? Can I be loving towards myself? Can I help give myself permission to experience joy? Can I be patient with myself, kind with myself, gentle with myself? Does what I believe about God help me to treat others in these ways too? So what can I do about people who treat me in ways that are not in harmony with the spiritual values? These are the values that we are to have as Christians, to relate to others. And so we can see that God relates to us in these ways, and we can also relate to ourselves in those ways. Sometimes, and we don't like to think about suicide, but it's good to know how to help. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and it's extremely distressing to the person who feels like they want to commit suicide and for those who know and love them. And with kind support and encouragement and prayer, people can get through a crisis. My husband and I have helped several people to not commit suicide by being aware and asking if we thought they were at risk, because when we don't make people think about it by talking about it, but we can help them sometimes break the cycle in their head of thinking about it by asking them about it. So asking people whether they're feeling like they want to give up on life can sometimes help them, as long as we're not judgmental with it, because sometimes people really feel so bad. Some of the Psalms and people in the Bible, even Jonah said, I'd rather die at times. So people say these things or feel these things, and when we can help them know that we care, we understand, and that there are other choices that can really help them. So my husband has been on some training, and they train them to actually say, is this what you're feeling? And help them to talk about it, ask them if they have a way that they're thinking of committing suicide that shows that it's actually quite serious. But even if they don't, it can be. And just let them know that you care and that there's help, and to think about what hole they would leave in the world if they chose to do this. The people that would be so sad, because it's devastating for the people that they leave behind. It's good to find more out about this. If you experience someone that you think might be suicidal, then go and get some help or look on the internet about how you can help the best. Say something like, you're experiencing a huge challenge right now, and I know some people who've gone through this occasionally wonder whether life is worth living. Have you ever had thoughts like that? You need to know that I care, that you're really precious to me and to others, and I will do my best to be there for you when things are difficult. Let me know when you feel very sad, like 3 out of 10, where 0 is really bad and 10 is very happy. And we can meet and talk. Don't let them get too down, because then it can be very hard for them to take action and contact you. So I usually say, when you feel sad, like 3 out of 10, then let me know and we can talk. And let them know to talk to a professional. That can be really helpful, because it's too complicated for us to manage on our own. Bedtime reflections. When you go to bed, it's really important to let your mind rest well and to heal well overnight as you sleep and think about your emotions. So when you go to bed, here are some things to think about so that your mind goes to bed feeling loved and at peace. Imagine God smiling at you and giving you a big hug as you go to bed. He says, I love you, giving you a big hug, and then tell him 3 things that went well today. It's really important for our mental well-being to think of 3 things that went well every day. It's a very simple thing to do. And it's like Paul says, think about the positive things. So think about what went well and thank God that those things went well, however small they are. Tell God 3 things you are thankful for, and because that lowers your anxiety. Tell him something that filled you with joy or wonder that he made, that you saw today. So the sky, God, the sky today filled me with so much wonder. Thank you for creating such a beautiful sky today. Tell God when you experienced his love and when you experienced love from someone else during the day. Tell him something that made you smile or laugh, because that's also positive. And the worries and fears that you can give to God, tell him these so that he can take care of them while you sleep. So these are different reflections at bedtime that can help you to resettle your mind and to think positively and help your brain to sleep in a more healing way. If you go to bed feeling anxious and depressed or in conflict with someone, then the brain tends to build up like chemicals in the brain that can help you become more anxious and depressed in the future. But by being able to think about positive things, pray, give them to God, we can kind of cleanse the mind of some of those worries and help our mind to have a better and more healing sleep. The 3 most important things for us to remember are: we love because God first loved us. So focus on God's love for you. Just sit there and think about how much God loves you. Whatever you're feeling, he loves you just the same, and he loves you so much more than you can ever imagine. And Ellen White says that we will keep unpacking aspects of God's love through the whole of eternity. And so we can start that now and just think about his love and how much he loves us. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and strength. And just take some time and just tell God how much you love him and your neighbor as yourself. So when we focus on loving others and ourselves well, all of these aspects of love create healing experiences in our mind and in our body and in our heart and in our spirit. We have nothing to fear for the future, except that we will forget the way that the Lord has led us and his teaching in our past history. And I found this has been really encouraging the more that I've grown through life, is to see that God has taken the things, the worries, the fears, the difficult challenges, the tragedies, and he has made them into something beautiful over time, because he loves us, and he's doing that for each one of us. We can't always see it. Some things happen beyond our lifetime. Some things we will not know till eternity, but he is really working things out for our blessing.